Let's talk about luxury car makers that are bucking the trend. McLaren is yet to produce a fully electric or hybrid offerings, betting battery technology won't be good enough until the mid-2020s. Joining us now is the CEO, Paul Buddin, the CFO of McLaren, which also doesn't want to make an SUV. And this is very interesting, Paul. Your company is so purist in its way about making these sports cars. Do you think that consumers are going to kick back against it? Do you think that they're not going to buy as many cars? Is that going to be a concern for you?
No, not at all, Matt. At McLaren, we're focused on building drivers' cars. Two-seater sports cars is where we're at, and of course we're not chasing volume. I think a lot of the car manufacturers out there have gone to look at the SUVs to increase volume, and that's not where we're at.
So when do you think, or why do you think battery technology won't be ready until 2025, when we already see cars like Tesla or the Taycan doing 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds and capable of 300 to 400 kilometers range?
Well, we are already investing in battery technology, but we're focusing more on hybrid technology with our batteries. We're going down the hybrid route because of the performance that it brings. Genuinely, a hybrid engine is faster and you get better performance than a turbocharged engine. So we will, by 2025, across our non-Ultimate Series cars, have a fully hybridized range. I think when it comes to looking at electric cars, which I think you're referring to with Tesla, at McLaren we're not about being the first to market with new technology. When we come to market with something, we want to do it better than anybody else is doing it. And therefore, when we do an electric car, which I'm sure we will at some point in the future, it will be the best out there, but we certainly won't be first to market with an electric car.
As the finance chief, you're focused on the numbers, Paul. You guys spend a lot in R&D, a lot to race in Formula One, and I guess the idea is you bring that back to customers. Does that really pay off?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we don't have any loss leader programs at McLaren. Every single vehicle that we produce is done so on a positive business case. And in terms of Formula One, our aim is to be more successful not only on track but also financially, and we're certainly heading in the right direction.
We've seen some pretty some pretty creative ways of raising money recently. Porsche had a promissory note that it sold to its own executives. How does McLaren want to finance its R&D going forward?
Well, actually, in terms of financing, we have all the finance in the group that we need now in order to fund the future development, and we've got a mixture of equity and bond debt in the group. From here on in, we'll be self-financing from free cash flow that new investment in new vehicles as we go forward.
So there's still no plans for an initial public offering then?
I thought that might come up. At this moment in time, our shareholders see a lot more growth in the business, a lot more return. So in the short term, no, there are no plans for an initial public offering, but let's see where we get to in the longer term.
Is it a good time for you to be selling debt? Have you got any bond offerings in the works?
Not at the moment. We issued some more debt a couple of months ago. That was very successful. But at this moment in time, we're not in the market for any more debt.
I can't leave without talking about the trade issues. Obviously, you're a British company, but you sell such expensive products that small tariffs wouldn't make a big difference. Is it a bigger concern to you, Brexit, than the U.S.-China trade war?
I wouldn't say one is more or less of a concern than the other. Clearly, we have to deal with a number of issues as we trade. We've dealt with a number of both political and economic issues since we sold our first car in 2011. One of the things we are at McLaren, though, being an independent company, is we're small, we're agile, and we're well placed to respond not only to any implications of Brexit, but also any implications that we might have with other trade wars going around the world.
I have to ask you about the P1 Supercar. Hannah Elliott wrote a story for us about hypercars right now that nobody can afford and starting to be a little bit silly, and yet the P1 is a car I think that everybody had up on his wall as a kid, or even as a 40-year-old kid like I did. Do you think there's going to be a follow-up? Do you have something in the works right now for a follow-up to the P1?
Yes, absolutely. As part of our Track 25 strategy that we spoke about at the Goodwood Festival of Speed last year, we announced that there is a follow-up to the P1 coming before 2025. But we also have other products in the ultimate segment. We've just finished delivering the McLaren Senna. We're about to start building the McLaren Senna GTR, and that'll be done by the end of the year. And of course, not forget, next year we have the McLaren Speedtail that a lucky 106 customers will be getting.